top 15 non-sports cards of all time, part 2. So as the name implies, I did have a part 1. I made a video a couple years ago of a top 15 non-sports cards video, and it was well liked, and I enjoyed doing research on it, so I decided to do another one. This video is not going to feature any cards from the same set from the first video I made, which I'll link in the description of that video. So no Pokemon cards or Garbage Pail Kid cards, and although I do make a few exceptions, and I try to keep it to one card per non-sport card category. And this list isn't necessarily in order of price, but it's kind of an order of cultural significance. And before I officially get started with the list, please like and subscribe if you haven't already, because these videos do take a lot of time, and a little pat on the back is always appreciated. All right, at number 15, the 1887 N365 Lone Jack Thomas Edison. So these were a set that featured inventors and their inventions. And Thomas Edison is the key card to get from the set. He was only one of the handful of inventors that was still alive when the set came out. A lot of the inventors they died in the early 1800s or 1700s, but Thomas Edison was only 40 when this set came out, and this is considered his rookie card. And of course, the invention featured on his card is the electric light bulb, and it's a very low pop. There's a total population between SGC and PSA of just 5, and it's a beautiful set. Number 14, the 2021 MetaZoo Kickstarter Full Hollow Moth Man. So this is a relatively, well, it's a very new set. It came out in 2020, MetaZoo. It was propped up by Steve Aoki, the DJ. He helped fund it and promote it. And it's sort of this combination between Pokemon and Magic the Gathering, but it uses mythological animals. And time will really tell how this set will do. It was very popular at one point, and it's lost some steam. But this Mothman in the set, the Kickstarter Mothman Full Hollow, there's a reverse hollow, but the full hollow is the most valuable, and this is considered to be like the equivalent of the 1999 Pokemon Charizard First Edition Shadowless. And this full hollow Mothman in a PSA 10 tends to go for $800 to $900. At number 13, the 1909 to 11 Cadbury Chocolates Olympic and Titanic card, considered the holy grail card of Titanic and ship collectors. This is the only card made featuring the Titanic before it actually sank. It's a British issue, and it's pretty tough to come by. The card was to advertise the two largest steamers that were in production at the time, the Olympic and the Titanic. They both look very similar. And a VGX copy of this card, which tends to be kind of the roughly the average grade for this card, it tends to go for about $450. All right, number 12, the 1936 R60 G-Man and Heroes of the Law. And I'm cheating a little bit with this list by including 5 cards, but I'll get into why 5 cards. But it's 28, 57, 88, 94, and 100. So in the 30s was really just this golden era for non-sports cards. There's a lot of key important non-sports cards from the 30s, like this 36 G-Man sets. Pretty tough set to put together. There's 168 cards in the sets, but there's 5 cards that are extremely rare, and that's number 28, 57, 88, 94, and 100. But the whole set in general is tough to come by, but these have always been 5 of the toughies that people want to collect. At number 11, the 1938 Hores of War R69 Gum Ink Marco Polo number 1. So this set is also one of the most desirable non-sports card sets. It was highly controversial set at the time, as the Gum Ink Company was a candy company that was marketed to kids, and the set showed a lot of war violence, pretty graphic war violence. And then the motto on the back of the card say, "To know the horrors of war is to know peace." So it was advocating peace, promoting peace by showing these really graphic war scenes. But the key card to get in the set is the first card, the Marco Polo Bridge card. A very tough card to find in high grade because it's the first card. There's also 48 cards depicted in the set that show the rise of that bad guy from Germany. I don't know if I can say his name without getting flagged by YouTube. But this Marco Polo card is generally considered the key card to get. Like I said, very hard to get and high grade. A PSA 8 sold in 2019 for $8,400. And there's only a total pop in PSA of 93 of these Marco Polo cards. And at number 10, the 1880 N344 Frank Hart. I'm sure no one has heard of Frank Hart, but he was one of the first black sports stars, and he competed in a sport called endurance racing. And I'm sure most of you never heard of that sport because it no longer exists. So that's why I'm including it in the non-sport list because it's no longer a sport, I guess. But endurance racing was it was essentially an ultra marathon. Participants were called pedestrians, and they were free to walk, run, crawl their way around an oval track as many times as possible in a span of 6 days, where they could sleep on cots within the inner oval. And usually they only slept for less than 4 hours per day. And fans attended these races and kind of dropped in and out throughout the 6 days, but it was treated with the same enthusiasm as a modern day college football game. In 1880, Frank Hart shattered the world pedestrian record by covering 565 miles at the original Madison Square Garden. And then 6 day racing quickly fizzled out. It really barely lasted 10 years in popularity. And then Hart went on and played baseball for Chicago Negro League team before passing away in 1908. And his racing accomplishments have been largely forgotten about, but he really was one of the true first star black athletes. And this is the first card featuring a black athlete player. Many consider the Isaac Murphy card from 1888 and 162 card to be the first card to feature a black sports player, but that's not the case. The Frank card came out 8 years prior, and there's also other cards that came out before the N162 Isaac Murphy card, like the old Judge boxing cards featuring George Godfrey, and there's some Peter Jackson cards featured as well. But a very historically significant card. Only 6 total graded between PSA and SGC. Couldn't find too much info about how much these cards go for, but this example went for about $1,000 back in 2010. And at number 9, the 1888 Goodwin Champions Buffalo Bill. So Buffalo Bill was one of the most famous and well-known figures of the American Old West, and he was famous for being this just excellent marksman, and he would show off his skills, taking his show around the country and even the world, and he was truly one of the biggest celebrities of the 19th century. But it should be noted that he actually has some earlier cards. He has a card, his true rookie card, the 1886 Old Judge card. Then he also has an 1887 Old Judge card as well. But I went with the 1888 Goodwin Champions card because this set is just it's a little bit easier to obtain, but still rare, and it's just a really highly collectible set. It has some key cards that people want, like the Mike Kelly and Cap Anson card. Just beautiful color. And a VG card like this will set you back about $800 nowadays. At number 8, the 2013 Fleer Marvel Retro Precious Metal Gems Spider-Man. So the 2013 Fleer Marvel Retro set is the first to include precious metal gems in Marvel trading cards. Now, these cards are, of course, paying homage to the original 1997 Skybox Metal Universe basketball PMGs, which had Jordan and Kobe. And that original set had green and red PMGs. But this set has 3 different colors of the foil. There's the red foil out of 100, the blue, which is new, out of 50, and then the green out of 10. And this BGS 9 green sold for $34,000 in 2021. Number 7, the 1931 Wills Cigarettes Walt Disney card. This is Walt Disney's rookie card. That's why it's high on the list, because who doesn't like Disney? It's a British card, relatively low pop, about 500 of these are graded. PSA 7s go for about $1,500, and a 4 like this one featured can go for about $450. And number 6, the 1966 Batman the Batman. This is the first appearance of Batman on a card, even though the first appearance of Batman in a comic was way back in 1939 with the Detective Comics number 27. So it took a long while. And this card came out to promote the 1966 TV show. There's about 1,100 graded by PSA, no PSA 10s. This set is really tough to get well centered. Just 13 PSA 9s without any qualifier. And you're looking at a 5-digit price in a card if it's a PSA 9. All right, number 5 on the list, the 2002 Yu-Gi-Oh! Blue Eyes White Dragon First Edition. A PSA 10 sold for $85,000 in 2020. There are certainly rare and more expensive Yu-Gi cards, but this is the most recognizable card. This is very much the equivalent of the 1999 Pokemon Charizard card. Number 4 on the list, the 1936 R144 Strange True Stories, The Batman. This is a really cool card. Although this story is still very much shrouded in mystery, it's been hypothesized that this card may have had some influence upon Bob Kane when he came out with a Batman comic book in 1939. Again, the comic book came out in 1939. This came out in 1936. Looks a lot like the Batman we know of today. And as a result, this is just a elusive target for non-sports cards collectors. This PSA 1 sold for $4,500 recently, and there's just 16 total graded by PSA. At number 3, the 1998 Skybox The Silver Age Stan Lee sketchographs. So actually, the year prior, 1997, Flair Ultra set came out with the first Marvel sketch cards, and they were drawn by artists who worked with the Spider-Man character over the years. It wasn't until 1998 that Stan Lee was featured in the set, which is really cool because if you know anything about comics, you know that Stan Lee actually didn't draw the comics; he wrote and came up with the idea for the comics. But these sketches of half of Spider-Man's face were actually drawn by Stan Lee. So I'm sure he practiced beforehand because he's not a visual artist by trade. And they're only out of 100 very tough pulls, and a Beckett 9.5 sold for $8,400 in 2022. Number 2, the 1977 Star Wars Luke Skywalker. So I made an exception for this card since I did feature a 1977 Star Wars card in my first video, which was a C3PO era card. But because that's an era card, I figured I give it a pass for this one because this is a big time card for Star Wars collectors, and there's a lot of Star Wars collectors out there. And the number 1 Luke Skywalker card is not easy to find in high grade because of the blue borders, and it's the first card in the set, which is always susceptible to damage. And a PSA 10 sold for $66,000. PSA 9s go for about $3,000. And there's about 2,803 graded by PSA, 82 PSA 9s, and 9 PSA 10s. And at number 1, the 1993 Skybox Simpsons Art to Bart. These were out of just 400 cards, and they're drawn and signed by Matt Groening, one of the first ever sketch cards. And of course, Matt Groening is the creator of The Simpsons, and they were redemptions. So I'm sure less than 400 were actually redeemed. These were the redemption cards. So don't be picking up these boxes expecting to pull a redemption card and getting one of these cards because the redemption cards have long expired. But these Simpsons sketch cards are now worth big bucks. The Bart headshot variation that you typically see goes for about 7,500, and some of the rare variations that Matt Groening drew, like Bart sitting down, this card on the left, and the Homer Simpson card on the right, can command up to $10,000 because you just don't see a lot of them compared to the Bart portrait card. And these cards remind me a lot of the 1909 Ramley baseball sets with the gold borders. Just a really, really cool set. So that's it. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.